Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. Now the question of who got to America first is something that fascinates loads of people. To be honest, I've never really been particularly bothered about it, but it fascinates loads of people, and there are all sorts of theories about ancient civilizations that supposedly made their way to America long before Christopher Columbus. Now it's known historically that the Vikings definitely did get to North America before Columbus. However, there are many people who believe that the Irish also got there before even the Vikings. So in this video we're going to take a look at three pieces of evidence that they did. So the first piece of evidence comes from Viking literature, the second piece of evidence comes from Irish literature, and the third piece of evidence comes from modern archaeology. So the evidence from Viking or Scandinavian literature is that in the Scandinavian accounts of the Vikings, of their settlement in what we now know as North America, they describe the fact that they encountered Irish monks who were already there. So you'd think that, well, that's definite evidence then that the Irish were there. If the Vikings themselves described the fact they met Irish monks there when they arrived, well, then that's good, that's great, that proves it. But apparently that's not good enough for some people. But that is one piece of evidence from the Vikings' own literature. However, there's also evidence from Irish literature. And also we've got to consider the fact that these Viking accounts don't tell us when the Irish got there. But Irish literature may well tell us the answer to that. So there's a famous religious leader, a religious figure from Ireland in the 6th century called Brendan, known as Saint Brendan. Now this person, Brendan, he was said to have engaged on a journey, a voyage, to a distant land, a kind of semi-mythical promised land. So in this account called The Voyage of Saint Brendan, the description of the journey from Ireland to this promised land is fairly detailed, which is very helpful because it means we can see how well it connects with the actual route from Ireland to North America. Now, if you were to sail from Ireland to North America, it would not be logical to just go straight from Ireland across the Atlantic directly west. It's much more logical to go island hopping, basically. So you've got, above the British Isles, you've got the Faroe Islands, and then you go in a westerly direction and you get to Iceland, and then you keep going west and you get to Greenland, and then you keep going west and you get to North America. So rather than making one big long journey across the open sea, you can make a series of relatively small journeys from island to island until you get to North America. So it's not actually that big of a deal. Obviously it's impressive, but it's not actually that remarkable to think that the Irish could have got there. Just like how the Vikings got there by taking a similar route, though obviously from an even further starting point. So how well does this description in The Voyage of St. Brendan match the actual journey from Ireland to North America? Well, the first significant place that Brendan reaches on his journey is a place called the Paradise of Birds. So this was a place in Ireland where there was said to have been loads and loads of birds living. It was said to have been really densely inhabited by birds. It's the Paradise of Birds. Now, if you go to the Faroe Islands, above the British Isles, then you find that they are in fact incredibly densely populated by birds. Incredibly densely populated by birds. So that matches the fact that Brendan's first stop was the Paradise of Birds. Then afterwards, as he continues on his journey, Brendan reaches an island where there are said to be these demonic blacksmiths that hurl flaming rocks at Brendan and his companions in the sea. So it's a very kind of fiery place. Now, how does that match the next stop on the journey, the real journey from Ireland to North America? Well, from the Faroe Islands, the next significant place is Iceland. Now, Iceland, of course, has volcanoes on it. It also has nearby undersea volcanoes as well that also erupt volcanic material out into the open. So either one of those, the volcanoes in the sea or the volcanoes on the island itself, could be the origin of this idea of these demonic, hellish creatures hurling flaming rocks into the sea. Then, after that island, the next significant place that Brendan gets to is, he encounters a region where there are towers of crystal in the sea. Now, what might they be? Well, as you go from Iceland and continue west, you get to Greenland. Now, Greenland, of course, is covered in ice, and icebergs regularly break off the coast and float out into the sea. Now, I'm sure you'll agree an iceberg could well be considered by someone who'd never seen one before to be a tower of crystal. So the fact that after this kind of demonic island, Brendan gets to this region of towers of crystal, that's a good match for Iceland and then Greenland, or the coast of Greenland, where you've got these icebergs coming off. And then after that, Brendan reaches the Promised Land, this lush green paradise. And that description matches very well with the description of North America made by the people who found it along with Christopher Columbus. In that era, when the first settlers got there, they described it as being basically a lush green paradise. So that description fits as well. And just to confirm that this isn't something that seems to work when you look at it on a map, but actually breaks down when you're actually there. An explorer called Tim Severin engaged on this journey himself using an authentically constructed Irish curragh, just like the ones they had in the 6th century. And he went on this journey himself, in this authentic Irish boat. And he found that as he was engaging on this journey, the experience that he had, and as he went past each location, it was just like the description in the voyage of St. Brendan. So this apparent match that you can lay out on a map, it does actually work when you're there, when you're actually engaging on this journey. It really does fit. So that's the second piece of evidence. Now, the third piece of evidence is something that was found very recently. You may have seen, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you may have seen a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month or two ago now, on the news, there were articles about how archaeologists had discovered evidence, apparently definitive evidence, that the Faroe Islands have been inhabited since about 500. So previously it was believed that they were first inhabited when the Vikings came along in the 9th century. But actually it's now known that they were first inhabited in the 6th century. Now that, of course, matches the era of Brendan, the 6th century. So this confirms that someone got there in the 6th century. Now, I think it would be quite a remarkable coincidence if there's this story about Brendan engaging on a voyage away from Ireland, which clearly, at least the beginning, clearly matches a journey to the Faroe Islands with the Paradise of Birds. And then archaeology proves that someone really did get to the Faroe Islands in the 6th century. That would be quite a coincidence if they're not connected. So I think the evidence clearly indicates that Brendan's journey really was a journey from Ireland to the Faroe Islands. And then regarding the next locations like Iceland, well, apparently the particular type of evidence that was found on the Faroe Islands is something that may well be on these other locations in the North Atlantic Sea, but it just hasn't been discerned yet. But apparently it could well be there already. I'll post a link in the description to the article which discusses this. It's very, very interesting to read about the specific way in which the archaeologists were able to discern that these islands had been inhabited in the 6th century. So, in summary then, from Viking literature, from Irish literature, and from modern archaeological research, I think there's a very good case to be made that the Irish really did reach North America in the 6th century.